we're repealing this law, but where is this coming from? If you are telling me that this is being influenced by cultural Marxists in the US, I am not going to give you. Just shut the flying. We don't get to where we are without talking to people. So let's never forget that. AM, our Tay Talk. So welcome to the next episode of Prav-in-Deep. So one of the deep things we're going to deep dive into is 377A, and I had my reservations. Like, for one, I view this as me building a brand for the long term, and I didn't want a cheap gimmick that was trending, spike in views, just because it was popular for me to discuss it. What I needed to kind of reflect on was, would this be of value to someone? And I think I managed to distill, at least in some way, I can add some value to this discussion, and that's what we'll be discussing today. I will at least give I'll try to illustrate what the landscape's about, what a marketing perspective can offer, and at least at the end, some prescriptions. We'll see where this journey takes us. Ooh, smoke machine. Maybe I'm just blowing smoke up your ass, that's what. So let's start what 377A is all about, right? So we as a country, we're just part of the Commonwealth, which is all ex-British colonies, and as a result, we inherited British law, particularly Indian Penal Code. That's where 377 originates from. What's been in the news is that India managed to repeal Section 377 of their penal code, and that sparked a debate, at least in Singapore, if Singapore is ready to follow suit. Our situation is unique, right? So it's always important to understand the context of what this law is. I think one good way to illustrate it is by talking about Singapore's approach to governance. I'm going to use the example of Lee Kuan Yew's garden. You can look at some of the old speeches, a bit of the old government publications, and you can kind of get the sense that he keeps the civil service on their toes, right? Because maintaining a garden city just kind of shows that you can't slack off, and it's a metric of measuring performance. Another perspective is it'll be inviting to investors. Come in the garden city, it's clean. It was more of a branding thing, but I found one interesting mention, and I think it really encapsulates the way Lee Kuan Yew thought about Singapore, at least his approach to governance. So in his travels, he had gone around the world, and one thing he had realized is that gardens and parks were something accessible only to the wealthy. People there generally being able to enjoy such nice amenities, but this was not the case for the poorer segments of society. And one of the things he shared was he wanted to bring that to scale. He wanted what was available to the elite masses, right, to tightly small expat communities, and to just bring it out to the average man, the average Singaporean. And for me, that was a beautiful idea. I think what people have difficulty in understanding, at least in understanding Singapore's approach, is because we keep identifying ourselves as we are pragmatic in our approach. Is that pragmatic leaning left, pragmatic leaning right? It's not an easy question to answer, but at least I have one proposed definition of pragmatism that I think can at least contextualize and kind of move things forward. Pragmatism is the scaling of goods, services, and options that were previously available to the elite to the masses. So it's not a difficult thing to understand when you look at it in the context of businesses. When Uber, right, did its first pitch deck, they described the taxi industry and all that, but one of the main businesses that they compared themselves to was NetJet, which was a private jet renting platform. So they were trying to democratize a service that was available to the hyper-rich to maybe the less hyper-rich, right? You can kind of see where this technological innovation is coming from. So if you look at Uber is not exactly a scaling of the taxi service. We've already had on-demand taxis with phone calls, but what it was is we scaled a service previously available to the extreme rich, which was a chauffeur-driven service, to the masses. We managed to make it scalable, we managed to make it affordable. It's been done several times before. Most other businesses, the one thing that I always point to is the rise in fitness trainers. So if you look at it easily 5 years ago, when you look at fitness trainers, if you worked out 5 days in the week, people think you're weird. Now it's become commonplace. Now it's why? Because this was something that rich people used to indulge in, and it's become scalable to the rest of the economy. So what has scalability got to do with this? Why we are looking at this, for example, the discussion about rights for homosexual members of our society. We want that. Like most people want that. We want to see the rights and dignities that were available to the elite masses, scalable to the more disenfranchised people in our society. What's the history behind this? How has Singapore approached this in the past? So Lee Kuan Yew, when he was asked about it, he he took what I can still describe as a pragmatic view. Ultimately, in a democratic society at least, the government is not in the business of engineering social change. So let's just hold on that. I know some of you might have some reservations about that. Like I said, it's a complicated discussion. Let's focus on a little bit for today. And the second thing that he mentioned is, while the government cannot engineer society, it also cannot move faster than the society it governs. It cannot put in place an unpopular policy or repeal a law that the society ultimately isn't ready for. We live together, right? Multiple people in this very vibrant society, and we cannot polarize things further. Ultimately, there are bigger considerations to bear in mind. And this has been what I call the great compromise between Singapore and the members of the LGBTQ community. What we said was, the law will exist. We will not do an unpopular measure by repealing it, but it will not be policed. It's been famously even circulated that the government does not want to be in the business of going to people's homes and people's bedrooms and interfering in their personal and private lives. That's it, the great compromise. And it reminds me a lot of the TV series The Wire. One of the seasons, they discussed how radically they wanted to approach the drug problem in the city of Maryland, Baltimore. One of their approaches was, he had a fabulous story. Before people were legally permitted to drink in public in America, you know, the poor man, the chill guys, on the weekend, he wants to chill out. He'll sit on the porch, he'll sit on the steps, and he'll sit there, beer in hand, drink, look at the pretty girls go by. He wouldn't be able to afford to go to some fancy bar. That was his rest. But once the law kicked in, now the police would have had no choice in it, but they would have to police such behavior, such public drinking behavior. They would have to arrest these people who are now officially criminals. And what it did was, it distracted them from real police work. Instead, they had to tackle otherwise normal normal people who wanted to just drink in public. Then came the great compromise between the population and law enforcement. Some genius took a paper bag, right, and put his drink in. And that's why you see it's a common trope in media, and at least someone who doesn't understand America. The paper bag now then allowed police officers, it was the great compromise between the cops and normal civilians. They could go about drinking. They were not in blatant flagration of the law. They were not just violating it. And the police now had the compromise, all right, you keep it discreet, I'm going to go and do police work. So there are, of course, legitimate criticisms to this, like if a law exists and if people but it's not police, does that undermine people's confidence in the law? I think that's a discussion I don't want to delve into at the moment. Let's once again remember exactly what has been a long stance. And that something was echoed again by Minister of Law K. Shanmugam. We don't want to move faster than society. We still have to see what kind of society we are governing. So ultimately what we can translate this as, we will repeal it sometime, but are the people ready for it yet? And I think that's an excellent way to segue into the larger conversation about persuasion. Recently, we've had really OG Professor of Law Tommy Koh even wandering into the discussion. So once the article was shared about India repealing 377, he commented below, urging the gay community in Singapore to form a class action suit to challenge the constitutionality of 377A. Interestingly enough, even other lawyers, like shout out to my bro Edward Tay, commented below asking about precedents and saying that hasn't that already been done before? Tomiko's reply was, try again. And it's been echoed by even Minister of Communications Janadas Devan, who has been extremely vocal even in the past about his views about the law 377 and now 377A. In 2007, an NMP raised quite a vile comparison about anal sex in Parliament. I think what she described it was like sucking a drink through a straw through your nose. Janadas Devan, who was then senior editor at Straits Times, eviscerated her, just completely destroyed her with this in a very well articulated argument. He's also come into the media saying that it's fundamentally a bad law. So one thing we must realize, that even within the government, even within leaders, even within people who've been in the establishment for so long, they recognize that, you know what, we don't quite like this law, and that people are getting impatient, they want to change things. This is where the conversation turns to how do we speed this process up along. One thing I've been seeing is generally the typical approach. So when it comes to marketing, when you're building a brand, you want to change, you're basically doing emotional inception. You're using the target's emotions to change their preferences towards something, and then eventually you want it to lead to the sale. You need to build that emotional connection with the customer. What does this mean for Singapore? I've spoken in the past at least about what I term a high resolution experience. Something that is vivid enough via media, via some form of interaction with the customer, that it will change whatever long-standing perceptions they've had towards the product, towards the brand. But what the hell has everyone else been doing in the meantime? This is an act of persuasion. You want to get people that otherwise are not firmly committed to this idea of rights for gay people. You want them to buy in. You want them to commit. You want them to switch their preferences. And what is their emotional involvement in the product? And this is where things get sketchy and where I get suspicious, right? So if you talk to the average layperson of the older generation, because in the 2014 Institute of Policy Studies survey, I think they ranked it as 55% of Singaporeans are not ready for something like 377A to be repealed. And you have to ask, what is the impression of gay people in people's minds? So I'll use other comparisons to kind of illustrate the point I want to get at. Black Panther. Prior to Black Panther, people had a very skewed vision of Africa. They would see Africa as the vast savannah, tribes and all that. No one would picture Johannesburg as a beautiful, sophisticated place. And that is a problem of perception, right? Black Panther comes along and now we can't help but see Africa with a rich culture, technologically advanced society, potentially black girls who are watching it now is firmly embedded in their mind, a high resolution experience of seeing a black scientist, a black technologist who's a woman, right? And then we talk about things like Crazy Rich Asians. Prior to that, what were people's views on Singapore? Uniquely Singapore? I guess, whatever. But I'm going to tell you that I bet Crazy Rich Asians give Singapore a better ROI than all of STB's budget put together for the last 5 years. And what's that? It's completely displaced people's perceptions of what Singapore is, what Asian are, what Asia is, just in one high resolution experience. And we're going to see a lot of social change there. For one, we've seen the Asian male previously not viewed as a sexualized person. Now we're seeing the sexualization of the Asian male. Props. Good for you. I'll bring in this one more example. So we can, and then we talk the professional world, right? How do you create empathy and an emotional connection with industries that otherwise people don't, quite frankly, think are douchebags, right? Lawyers and bankers. So we'll start with Suits. Suits, it's not the first legal drama. There's so many legal dramas, but something about Suits particularly resonates with people. The gloss, the fanfare around laws and the supposed ethics and all that. And like it or not, there is a very vibrant image, a vivid image in people's minds about what a lawyer is that actually surpasses what reality is. And that vivid image is more persuasive. And then what do you have next? DBS Sparks, a YouTube series done, I think there are 10 episodes in. And they've got these actors telling stories about DBS as a bank. People can't even explain why. The average layman's like, I have no idea why, but they're hooked to it because we just want something strong, wanting something compelling. Just the smallest of narratives can change your perception. And now you've humanized these bankers who otherwise are like scum of the earth. We'll discuss my feelings about bankers some other time. And what does that mean for the gay community? This is a race to win people's hearts and minds. How have we been doing that? I'm seeing a lot of conversation. It's not really the kind of conversation that I want because it's not a negotiation. What was achieved before was a kind of a compromise between the gay community and the Singapore government. And sure, we don't know what channels that went through. A lot of it was top down. But right now we live in a very different world. And we can accelerate that process. Now the question is, how many gay people or members of gay community that are trying to advance this cause, or even their allies, are using the most effective tools and weapons available to them? Honestly, I'm not seeing a lot. So what I'm seeing is, one is, you have Pink Dot. Intentionally, it's really polarizing, people are pushed away. But that's not a fault of Pink Dot. I want Pink Dot to persist. I think it's a great festival. I think people should come together. But like I said, is this the most effective form of persuasion as a marketer? Nah, it's not. I don't see the ROI. I don't see the long-term process. Yeah, and you know what? But maybe Pink Dot is just preaching to the choir, right? It's like you're already preaching to the converted. People, maybe the people you're getting there are not newly acquired believers, but these are people that have already identified as allies, who've grown up in the kind of culture where they can connect with gay people and have their support. What's happening right now is we are doing petitions. We are trying to strong arm people into change, at least strong arm the government into changing their policy. And we're doing this through petitions online. But ultimately, you also have to ask yourself, once you see the petition numbers for people who are not in favor of repealing 377A, would the people on the left be in support of that? Would they say, oh, you know what, the numbers actually show that we are not ready for this? Would they be willing for that? I don't know. Let's focus on what actually can happen. How do we bring people to the table to actually discuss this. And once again, it boils back down to what I call the high resolution experience, right? One thing that we know for sure, at least in looking at Pink Dot, we have so many people that identify as allies to the LGBTQ community. These are overrepresented. Once again, allies to the LGBTQ community are overrepresented in creative fields. You're going to see a lot of creative directors, a lot of actresses, actors, musicians who align themselves, at least in support to more liberal views. And that's perfect. But then again, this brings us to the next thing. It means you have no fucking excuses, guys. You all want to wait for MediaCorp to pick your shit up? What's happening right now? You're hoping for representation, at least in some form, but is that the most effective way so you can reach hearts and minds? I don't think so. Before representation, let's talk about persuasion. I'm going to give some of my prescriptions for how I would approach something like this. And I'm going to center in directly in. So we'll look at different communities in Singapore. Let's talk about the Malay Muslim community in Singapore. Let's be real. No, I'm a friend. My whole team here is Malay Muslim. I'm just saying this out of love. I really want you guys to win in this battle. But the fact is, the conversation needs to start at home. And this just seems like a common sense thing. But how many of you guys can have this conversation if you're needy about gay rights, about 377A? You can't, right? And that already tells you the kind of friction that's happening in the society. The real question is, how do you get Nini to buy in? And that's where we talk about empathy. Empathy, I've always said this, is a tool. And even more importantly, it can be a weapon. Do not remove empathy from your toolkit. Put yourself into the minds of the people that you're trying to persuade, and then finding out their needs, their wants, and then using it to bring them over to your side. And now I'm going to be real. Is there empathy for Nini? Is there empathy for conservatives? There's even the small class of intellectual conservatives that are very, very worried about American intrusions into politics. We have about cultural Marxism. They would be otherwise, I'm telling you guys, they would otherwise be in support of gay rights in Singapore, just that they're worried that they don't want to concede ground to the far left. Have they been spoken to? Is there empathy? Now you're going to, I know where the conversation will go. So what, are we supposed to, is the Jew supposed to have empathy for the Nazi? I'm saying fuck yes, because it's a weapon in your toolkit. You prevent hardship. You use it to find out their needs, their events, and then you persuade. So that brings down to the second belief, like what if this person cannot be persuaded? Where's the evidence in that? As a marketer, I'll say fuck off. Like, look at it, iPhone just dropped their video. iPhone XR.
XS.
What the flying fuck? But you know what? They're still going to persuade you. Yeah, it's so weird. 10S versus XS. Yeah, anyway, people are still going to buy that shit. Like I'm telling you, despite your reservations, because Apple will persuade you. They will take the time to find out, to empathize with you, build your profile, and persuade you. They will, look at it, like they've given you, there's so many vivid things that they painted in your mind. Look at Apple's 1984 ad. They've been doing this for what, 30 years, man.
Yeah.
They didn't show the product, but they created an experience that is right now an ad, like icon. The 1984 ad.
Yeah.
So, about what are we doing here? What are we as allies, as marketers doing? I don't know. I see people trying to persuade each other in Facebook comment sections. What the flying fuck is the point of that? Then you create think pieces, Rice Media on, oh yeah, you know, Singapore, wow, now suddenly populist or what? Like guys, what is the point? Like, is this a circle jerk? Is everyone just trying to get points, views? And is no one actually trying to find something that works? And this actually, it's documented. We see the term virtue signaling, everything coming about. So we need to bring the fire to you guys. What do you guys want to do about this? How quickly can you engineer social change? And I mean, once again, empathy. And I feel that that's what's not been happening. We want to polarize. And so let's talk about what's firmly entrenched in people's minds now. For at least most of the older generation, the idea of a homosexual is either painted by imported videos last time of gay pride parades in San Francisco, or Kumar, a drag queen. And that is not, like I said, an image that people can connect with. It's not an updated image of the world. It's not a persuasive image of the gay community. How do we displace it? And I'm going to zero in particularly on how we talk about persuading your nene. So firstly, don't underestimate the ability to persuade people. Like, don't say, oh no, they're stuck in their ways. No, you guys haven't even fucking tried yet. What we're seeing online right now is a very competitive approach. People are bringing both sides of the political spectrum. I think I've seen someone this weekend wants to bring, it's Hersey, right? Wants to bring a debate between a very conservative, machi type person, right? And of course him, to the forefront to bring together their views. So, shout out Hersey, much love to you. I've been a fan for years. We've actually worked together before, but I can see the limitation as a marketer. Right, be very clear. As a marketer, the limitation of this approach. When you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And Hirzi, what you've been very comfortable with in the past is very provocative content. Right? It's like Sacha Baron Cohen in a little sense. You go on trains, you assault the senses, right? You comically make people feel uncomfortable. You work with foreign workers. You create controversial content, and in fact, you manage to spiral that out into the separate identity of Shasha Nawok. But ultimately, we have to ask about the effectiveness of such a strategy. Will that bring people to the table? Is that creating a high-resolution image enough to displace what people have in their head? This, for me, I've always said this before in the past, that I think the TV series Glee has done more to advance the gay rights movement in the US than years of campaigning and activism. Right? What we see instead is you watch Glee and you start to humanize these people and you start to realize that it's just a common experience, and bam, immediately perceptions change. I have friends who are homophobic till they watch the TV series Sense8, and then now you start feeling, yeah, for real, right? And must censor the name. Yeah, but until they watch the series, and then now they feel it, right? They connect with the audiences. What has been done to reach out to your need? I know I'm singling out the Malay community for this, but that it's about, yeah, we got the stats, right? Like, so for example, what I see is a particular resistance even on people on the more conservative end of the spectrum. When today the Council of Churches dropped a statement saying that, hey, we are against gay rights. You look at the comment section under the Straight Science page, everyone flaming such an organization. But if you ask movies to put out a similar statement, I don't think you'd see the kind of ROI. You won't see the kind of engagement for at least an article like that. So I think we also are skirting around the issue, and that's because we don't want to acknowledge the fact that the Malay Muslim population in Singapore still hasn't been brought over, and in that Institute of Policy Studies, 95% in the survey, 95% of Malay Muslims in Singapore said that they weren't ready for, or rather they strongly viewed it as wrong for two men to have sexual intercourse with each other. So how do you persuade that? How do you create a vivid enough image in their minds? I think why the danger is in people asking for representation in the media. You're not going to see that anytime soon. MediaCorp will be aligned to the views of the government, and they will not jeopardize their own standing and reputation by putting forward homosexual representation in the media. But why the fuck are you guys waiting for that? You don't have a DSLR? You don't have talent? We've laid out so many Pink Dot allies are talented people. I mentioned DBS Sparks. Pink Dot, Adrian Pang was an ally. What's her name? Kapoor? Anita Kapoor was an ally. These are talented people. How many creative directors do you know? We have Hirzi, we have who's also been an ally. We have so many prominent talented, we have on the visual side. Malay guy, Malay CD. Director, you can't film a 5-episode web series with Afian Saad around. Instead of that, what's he doing? The fucking is one of our best playwrights. No, props to you, man, but what the fuck is going on? Like, this is it, guys. You have absolute mad talent that can advance this persuasion for the mass population, and nothing's being utilized apart from think pieces, badly designed persuasion tools. Your social media's not working, nothing's working. Early on in the conversation, my friends threw in and say, no, maybe we just aren't aware of good content. It's just a distribution that's a problem. You know what? I'm going to come out and say it. I think that's bullshit. I've been to a lot of film school graduation shows. Maybe the minority of films that talk about lesbian rights in Singapore are boring as fuck. There's a reason why something like DBS Sparks is persuasive, because maybe they just don't have long close-up shots of someone in HDB looking away. You guys are boring as fuck. That's on a content level. I'm ready to be proven wrong. Please, I absolutely would love to put in the comment section below if you find a good enough piece. I would love to circulate that. So what can be done? Imagine this, a 5-part web series, 10-part web series about gay people in Singapore living normal lives. Why I highlighted the Malay community? Because you need to go down to speak the language of the people you're trying to persuade. There's a fucking reason we're shooting this in Yishun right now. So the reason why I'm dissing, for example, film school students and their content is because Singaporeans tend to produce highbrow shit. And this is missing out on what everyone around you can actually relate and empathize with. Are you guys doing that? Are you doing something that has mass appeal? I still don't see that, guys. And like I said, a fuckload of talent. Put your money where your mouth is. How about do shit like that for free if you guys want to? Let's talk about the content then. So what's the prescription? 10 episodes, web series. 15, 20 minutes each, even shorter if you want to. Distribute these videos not just on Facebook, make into WhatsApp clips. Because think about it, every family chat, there's always that early morning, good morning message. Tell a compelling story, but normalize it. Maybe show your nene sitting there, a man talking to her grandson, discussing the difficulties about raising his son, alright? Maybe the son can't speak Malay. Alamak, I'm really trying to get him to speak Malay, but he's just always speaking in English. And the nene having a conversation with him saying, yeah, have you tried talking to your husband about it? Normalize it. Create a vivid image in your mind. Show a scene at Hari Raya where people are coming over and then they're sitting down. You see a hijabi sister and a man with his homosexual partner there. Bam. Right. The facts don't matter. In persuasion, the facts don't matter. Right? We know Trump did that with Kim Jong-un. There's a reason he didn't put some diplomatic letter or some kind of memo trying to persuade him on what the future of North Korea holds. He showed him on an iPad a trailer for a resort in Pyongyang. Why? Because it's a high resolution experience, something vivid enough that can completely change the perception of what he sees the future as. And you guys aren't doing enough of that. I simply don't see that kind of content. I think this is the part I can actually wrap up. You know what? I'm going to jump in and I'm really sick, guys. I'm rooting for you guys. I want this social change to happen, but I'm not dumb. I'm not naive. I know what the terms are. They've negotiated. Approach it as a conversation. This is what they told you. Hey guys, this is what we've agreed upon, right? This is what we're going to do. But how do you convince them that this is the time? This is the time that the population is ready enough. Have you done that? You haven't done that. You haven't convinced them. You haven't convinced me. So this is what I'm going to put. I'll put the challenge out there. We want to film something like that. If you believe you've got what it takes, hit me up in the comments. I will gladly link you up with people. I know great videographers. I know great content writers. Now, I'm for real. So what do you need? Visual help? Man, fuck this shit. Really, you have a shortage of talent? No, guys, put your money where your mouth is. Create persuasive content to speed up social engineering. That's all I want to say about it. Scale what is available. You don't have an excuse now. You've got YouTube. You've got your phone. You can give me a high resolution experience with the fucking shit you have in your hands. There's no more excuses, guys. So hit me up if you need help. I'm here to help. I have no stake in this, apart from the fact that I want you guys to win. You know what? To sum it up, have empathy. Start to empathize, get into their minds of the people they are trying to persuade. Then persuade. So before you sell something, you have to get people's attention first. How have you got people's attention? Think pieces, festivals. Honestly, it's lazy, man. You guys got to step up. Persuade them with the best tools you have. Tell a compelling story, build a picture in your head, replace existing ones. Someday, all of us can play in the garden together. No. I feel Herzi is going to me.